Any child growing up always looks to their father. We always felt that architecture really is a window into the landscape.
华裔建筑大师贝聿铭已逝14年，他给世界留下了诸多地标建筑，也给他的孩子们留下了宝贵的经验传承。我们找到了他的儿子贝理忠，和他聊聊他和父亲的建筑人生。
Well, yes, he's very well known, and growing up with a successful father, I think many people may know that your father is not always around because they're very busy building their career. So actually, my father was often traveling, and I saw less of him than many other young children would see of their parents. But this did not prevent me from really learning from him. I learned by example. He worked very hard, and he was so kind, and I think he was very supportive of me and of my brother and sister when we were growing up. So, but it's not like he was sharing his drawings with us, showing us his projects or things like that. No, that wasn't what he was doing. But I think by example, by the fact that I think he was hardworking. He was always had a smile on his face, and that he really cared for his family. Was something I remember very well. So it was a very good childhood. We did a lot of traveling together as a family, particularly when we were teenagers. We went to Europe several times, and I remember visiting a lot of wonderful places in Italy and France, Germany, Switzerland, places like that. It was wonderful. Then, and another thing we always did was on weekends, we always went, as a family, we always went out for dinner once a week. And that was something which was so nice to experience every week, to be with the family. Well, I referred, I guess, just a moment ago to the fact that we traveled a great deal. And I think traveling with him, perhaps if anything, introduced me to my field of architecture, was probably those trips. When we went to France, we just didn't go to Paris and shop. No, we went to southern France, to Provence, to various parts of the Loire, and places where we could visit, see architecture. When we were in Italy, we would go to Florence, to Rome, to San Gimignano, Venice, places like that, which happened to be wonderful places to experience architecture, but as a family member, enjoying it. So I would say, that was a very, very important part of my life and our family's life. I don't know what else I can say other than, we were as a family very close. It's something which is very important in a Chinese family. We all stayed together, and we always used to see our relatives and be with them. So it was a very, very enjoyable time.
工作在父亲的光环下，让人们很少关注贝理忠的艺术能力与贡献，这一度让贝理忠耿耿于怀。他曾在采访里说过，因父之名是祝福也是诅咒。
Curse is probably not the right word. People might misinterpret that. No, but I think they would also understand that when you have a very prominent father, you're always operating somewhat in the shadow. So on the one hand, he was very successful, which brought a tremendous amount of what we call reflected glory, unearned attention to me growing up. On the other hand, it somewhat cast a shadow on my own achievements, which at a different part in my life, I wouldn't say I resented, but I was frustrated by the fact that people were less aware of my my own personal artistic contributions and abilities. So that's why I mean both a blessing and a curse. But really, it's much more of a blessing, much more. Well, I tell you, I have so many different experiences. Was the most important project for me at the time in my career. It started in 1982. My first trip to I guess it wasn't my first trip to Hong Kong, but it certainly was my first trip to Hong Kong when I was introduced to an enormous challenge, which is to build a very tall building in Hong Kong. And so I remember the experience of working with my father. I think this was the project that my father wanted to expose me, introduce me to, challenge me to do a tall building. In fact, he had not done really a tall building himself, really of this kind of importance before. Hong Kong was very, very significant because of the connection to the Bank of China, because it was Hong Kong which was so prominent in China, and so for me to be my father's choice to work as his senior architect on the project. I was still quite young, but there was a big challenge. And I think that was very, 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 very special for me to have been given that opportunity. Could have gone to many other people with even more experience than I. So that was number one, the most very, very important for me, looking back on my own career, that I had that opportunity. And I actually was very involved in the early design of the project. In other words, what we call the critical conceptual period, when you really have to think about how to deal with this site. And working closely with him, really the only person at the beginning to really be working side by side, is something that I will never forget, and I will always value and cherish, because I learned a great deal, not only about the design of a tall building, but frankly, being the son and being given the privilege of working on such an important project. So that was the beginning. Why did I become an architect? Well, I think anybody who, any child growing up, always looks to their father as because your father, whoever it is always working at something that obviously is of interest and they enjoy doing. So first and foremost, I had that experience of looking at somebody who really enjoyed what they were doing. And although I rarely went to his office and I rarely saw the product of what he was doing, I never saw him sketching in front of me. I was always sort of conscious of that he was an architect and that he did buildings, and that was always, and I had my own artistic interest, as a child. So I don't think it's all that surprising that architecture would be a profession that might appeal to me. But I don't think I decided to enter the field until much, much later, when I was in college. It was really in college that I had my first introduction to the profession, or to the field of architecture. No, not at all. In fact, it's a misunderstanding. He probably didn't want me to become an architect, but he didn't urge me to become an architect. I have one daughter. I wouldn't ever want to tell my daughter what to do. And I don't think he wanted to tell me what to do. It has to come from within. I think it's best that you allow your child, in this case me, to find your own passion. It never would be right to be forcing that upon your child.
苏州博物馆的设计与建设是贝氏家族对家乡的一次回望，因为那是贝氏家族延绵600多年的根系所在。但很多人不知道的是，被视为贝聿铭晚年重要作品的苏州博物馆，其主设计师其实是小儿子贝理忠。
The main reason why it's important is because it's in Suzhou. Suzhou is our ancestral home, where when my father was growing up, he spent a lot of time, and we have a lot of family members still living in and around Suzhou. So that's very important. So there's definitely a very strong family connection. I think what interested me about the project that we did, which is a museum, is that it was a project of a scale and of a scale that really wanted to fit comfortably within the scale of Suzhou, and we had to find a language of architecture that would be compatible and yet both modern and sophisticated, and as a museum would satisfy the very demanding requirements to show artwork. Now the building is, this is a building that is more than a building. We call it, this is a museum, a building that really complements the landscape with it. It works very well with the landscape. So there's a lot of outdoor space that galleries in the building looks into this garden. And I think that my father and we always felt that architecture really is a window into the landscape, should have a window into the landscape. And I think we were able to achieve that in this building. As I said, it was, the materiality of the building is important. The use of to try to derive a language that is sympathetic and is reflective of what you have in Suzhou, which is the white wall and the dark trim, which used to be in tile, gray tile, but now we did it in stone. The shape of windows, as I said, the views to the landscape, the asymmetry of the plan were all things which we studied very carefully. I would say the one I haven't done right now. I'm working on several projects I'm very proud of. They're not completed, but they are in construction. In fact, many for the Bank of China, but also a hotel in Fuzhou, apartment building in Canada. I've also done some. I'm proud of all my projects, to be sure. I did an office building in California, a small office building that I enjoyed doing. I was very, very involved in that design. Let's just say the one I haven't done is my best. How's that? I hope it's still the best. The relationship with the bank goes back many decades, even before my involvement with the Bank of China Tower here in Hong Kong, when I was here for maybe 8 or 9 years during the design and construction of the project. But my grandfather was also the general manager of the bank in the very early days of its founding, and so it's a family, almost a family relationship that we've been very proud to be able to assist them. Well, I would say, the project we're doing in Lingang is more similar to the Bank of China here in Hong Kong than it is to our project in Beijing. But both Lingang and Hong Kong are tall buildings. The Lingang is 200 meters, Bank of China is 300 meters. But Lingang is two buildings, not one building. And they are actually connected at the top. So they actually touch. I call them kissing towers. They literally touch. But we have made a number of, I wouldn't call them improvements because I don't want to suggest that the Hong Kong Bank has not achieved a certain level of high refinement. But what we have done with Lingang is to address some of the perceived shortcomings of Bank of China in terms of the window area and in terms of the structure. So I think that while people may say it looks like the same building that we did in Hong Kong, it is not. It's not at all. But at the same time, we've done something that's very, very unique, original, and will then create an advancement that can be carried into perhaps a third generation or a fourth generation of this concept. This is a project I'm extremely excited and proud of. We have a very dedicated and talented team working on this project to really fulfill that vision. And it may be a little bit early to talk about it in great detail, but I think it's something to look forward to.